Hello there, everybody. Welcome back to Forte Fever. Hope you guys are doing okay. Right, okay. Well, first and foremost, I'm back after missing the pod on Sunday, in which I've got Luke with me in this one. I've got to say, you did a fine job.
Oh, thank you very much, mate. Got to admit, I was a bit nervous going into that one. I'm not used to being the lead host. It was big shoes to fill, so I'm glad you think I did well.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. You and Jack, it was a really good. There was a lot of really good discussion points there. It was a really engaging listen. Yeah, I was a little bit under the weather, but well, that's what Luke claimed to be. If anything, I was watching Danny Rose's goal on repeat all Sunday night. It's you might as well just give him the Puskas Award there and then, or just give it now. Because that
Couldn't
thing is.
resist mentioning it.
It typifies him so much, and I absolutely adore the bloke. And I don't think I've never seen a goal like it. So I've got to get it mentioned in there because I didn't do on Sunday. Yeah, you've probably noticed this is a midweek recording. Jack did point out that, or we pointed it out if you watched the deadline day stream on Monday, we actually hit 500 subscribers. So first and foremost, thank you for that. We really do appreciate your support. And we pretty much said on the back of that, we'll start doing a weekly pod, like having a look at the games and just other different stuff. So that's what we've got here. There's a couple of things to go through before the games, and we'll head on to them straight away. I've actually got my trainers on because I need to be away pretty sharpishly right after this pod, but we'll get straight into it. Right, okay, Carlisle, let's talk. They obviously got hammered at the weekend. I think it's safe to be said, or it's safe to say even 5-1 at home to Ian Holloway Swindon. I know that obviously Luke and Jack gave their props to Ian Holloway. I think it's deserved, and even I'm going to have to say that because, I don't like the bloke, but credit where it's due. And I think it was Jack that pointed out there was one or two whispers of Mike Williamson losing his job after that, and it proved to be correct. It was a bridge too far eventually for Carlisle. And that happened on Monday, which was transfer deadline day. We'll get onto that, but we're recording this on the Thursday. The time is about 2:05. And they this morning announced the appointment of Mark Hughes. Now, obviously, Mark Hughes, brilliant player back in his day, as you can clearly see. But I think in terms of management, obviously his last job came at Bradford City in League Two, so it's not like he's completely new to League Two. Like he knows some of the ins and outs, and there's a couple of players in that Carlisle squad that he'll be familiar with. I mean, Harry Lewis in particular, although he's not really been playing at the minute. But let's just go back to the beginning. Mike Williamson's departure. Your thoughts, because I've got a couple of things on this.
The way I'd put it is it was the right decision at the wrong time. Because, I mean, this is the second window in a row where Carlisle have ultimately let a manager have the entire window to bring their players in. They've backed them right until the final minute, and then they've got rid of them, and they've got to replace them with someone else that might not necessarily want those players in the first place. So it's one of those things where I think they just had to be a bit more decisive when it comes to that sort of decision making. Either you sack him at the beginning of January, so your new manager's got a chance, or you hold on to him and you at least give him another month or two to see if he can make it work. But obviously, with Carlisle's situation, time isn't really a luxury they have. So I can understand the reason to get rid of him. I just think they've timed it horribly, and they've put themselves right up against the wall to try and get themselves out of this situation. I'm not really sure what to make of it.
Yeah, completely agree with what you've mentioned there. I think there has been instances in like the past few weeks or even before January in which I think if Mike Williamson had lost his job there, I don't think really anyone could have complained. I think there was some right stinking results in there and even worse performances. I remember them losing at Morecambe, and I thought that could have been the end for him there. And I thought he was quite fortunate to keep his job. A couple of other instances. Hell, we're even going back to I think when they lost to Cheltenham with that Harry. I think it was that Harry Lewis going goal, that one. again, I wouldn't have been surprised if he went there, but it's the fact that he's clearly been backed in the transfer market. He's clearly had the backing of the owners, who mentioned that, I think, in the fans forum as well, that that he is their man, and he is the man to lead them forward. 11, 12 new faces, or what it was this month.
Along those lines.
Yeah, it was a whole restructure of the squad, and to get rid of him on deadline day, as much as I think it is the correct decision, and I think the writing has been on the wall for quite a while now. The timing of it is rank stupidity, because I think any manager that comes in now, they're already on the back foot. With the amount, they brought in 11 new players. They've already got loads. I know they've shifted off a few, but they've still got a lot of players on their books. Clearly a squad that's massively underperforming, massively with no confidence, struggling for points at the bottom. It's got to a situation now where it's looking bleak. I think that Swindon result has pretty much affirmed it. It just puts any manager on the back foot straight away, because they had a month to do this. They had a month. If they realised that he wasn't the man a month ago, it would have been easy. You can get rid of the manager. Albeit maybe with less time, but he'd have had time to get his own players in. And the thing is, with those signings, are very Williamson signings. It's not just going to be a thing in which a different manager, like Mark Hughes, we'll come on to in a minute, that I think can adapt, because those players are brought in to play a certain style, and I'm just not sure. I just think it's the correct decision, wrong time. All the timing is just dreadful.
Well, yeah, they just haven't learned from their mistakes, because they did the exact same thing with Paul Simpson. And it's given how well that's gone for them first half of the season, you'd think, right, they won't do the same thing again. And then they've gone and done the exact same thing, and it puts them in the exact same situation. And it's just a really, really tough one to get out of. And then when you talk about the new manager coming in as well, it's also the stylistic differences, because obviously Simpson to Williamson is a huge shift. But I would also argue this is potentially another shift as well. So I'm sort of concerned on a larger level with Carlisle, because I couldn't tell you what their identity is at the minute, because they keep changing it. They're bringing in players for one system and then bringing in a manager from a different type of system to try and make it work. That's just not how things are going to work for you in football. It's not going to go well. I mean, when you do end up in these relegation scraps, sometimes you just need someone that will get you out of it in any way, shape, or form. It doesn't matter, as long as you end up above those relegation spots. But I don't think they're doing themselves any favours.
No, I don't. You'd have thought that lessons were learned, but clearly they weren't. But it's just 3 managers now, 3 completely different styles. You can maybe argue that Simpson and Hughes might be a tad bit similar, but it's the fact that they've had Williamson in between, and he's got this idea of how football should be played, and he's brought players in to try and perfect that.
Well, they just got rid of Simpson's players as well.
I don't get it. I really don't get it. As much as I agree with the decision to get rid, because let's be honest, I think it could have been. I mean, it already seems a little bit toxic towards him as it was at Carlisle. And I think if he stayed another week, I think that it just became untenable, his position. I think it's safe to be said. Right, let's talk Mark Hughes. They've decided to go for him. I think it was made pretty clear that they wanted a manager in quickly, and I think they wanted one with a fair bit of experience. I mean, Mark Hughes does have experience. He has League Two experience. I think this is a completely different situation than to what he was at Bradford, because Bradford, as a club, I think they're normally expected to challenge right up the top end of the table, which is what they've or at least they've always tried to be. This season, I mean, looks pretty promising if recent weeks have been by, but this is a completely different scenario, because you're coming into a team in which, well, let's pick no bones about it, they're in a relegation battle. they're the worst team in the league by a mile at the minute. And there's some good players there. Some good players that are being paid a lot of money. I mean, you look at some of the names that they were rumoured to be looking at. I think Mark Kennedy was one. That would have been a disaster. I'd have just put the R next to the name now if they did that. I think the likes of Michael Apton was mentioned. Paul Hurst was mentioned. Obviously, a manager that I know well at Grimsby. I can tell you now for a fact that this couldn't be anywhere far from a Paul Hurst team. This is so far away from what you'd expect a Paul Hurst team to be. And I think that would have been a bit of a poor appointment, to be honest. Nothing against Hursty. That's just what I feel, but I don't know. I've got mixed views on Hughes. If I'm going to be honest, I mean, you certainly got experience, but he's got a hell of a job in his hands. I think let's not make that mistake.
Oh yeah, no, he does. I mean, I can understand it from some extent. I mean, you look at the pedigree of that he's got of some of the teams he's managed, like in the past, obviously a long time ago now, but it still counts for something because that experience is important, especially when you are in a crucial sort of time of the season, and they do need to get themselves out of this mess because National League would be a bit of a disaster when you consider the resources they've got at their disposal. It is a tricky one though, because I think when you then put it into context, it's kind of a case of I like the appointment in itself. It's just the timing and the style. It just doesn't quite add up. Like I can see what they've tried to do. It just doesn't quite make sense. It doesn't seem particularly logical to me. So I mean I don't doubt that he'll probably get the best out of some of these players, but can you get them playing as a sort of cohesive unit? I'm not necessarily convinced. It's sort of more I'll believe it when I see it sort of thing.
And I'd look at Carlisle's next few games as well. I mean, Mark Hughes obviously kicks off his tenure as they travel to Grimsby at the weekend. Get done by another managerial bounce, aren't we? Twice in a month. But then they go to Newport after that. Colchester at home, Gillingham at home, and Barrow away. There's points to be won there. I think you look at that Newport one in particular as being huge. I think the side that are near them. But yeah, I think, like I said, I think any manager that has come in will be instantly on the back foot with the fact that they've had a whole month to decide this. And they've backed Williams to the hills in the transfer market, brought in a lot of players, spent a lot of money, early to change it right on deadline day. I just find it ridiculous. I really do. But I mean, I'm not sure what to think of Hughes either. I mean, could they have got anyone better? I mean, I think there's maybe a couple. I think John Brady was another name that was mentioned. I'd have quite liked that appointment, but I think you're probably looking at it. Here and I think they could do much worse, if I'm going to be honest, but I'm yet to be convinced. I think he's probably it. But if he keeps Carlisle up, then I think that's got to be one of his best achievements in football, because this Carlisle team look absolutely shot to bits at the minute. They just need something, and if he can do something, then he deserves a massive pat on the back. But that remains to be seen. But yeah, I'll be honest, I'm yet to be convinced with it. We'll have to see how it goes. I do want to touch on Tranmere real quickly before we get onto the transfer window and looking at the games this week. I noticed earlier that their chairman Mark Palios released a statement basically giving the dreaded vote of confidence towards Nigel Adkins, and I think he mentioned that it was something along the lines of changing a manager mid-season doesn't really do anything. I beggars believe how he's still in a job. But that's the sort of thing in which, I've seen before. You give the manager the vote of confidence, and a couple of games' time, they're out the door. I've seen this quite a few times before. I think I thought he was well off the mark with quite a lot of stuff, especially keeping him, because, I mean, look, Jack pointed out those stats. If you heard the pod on Sunday, those stats were pretty damning. And the fact he's still in the job is quite remarkable, to be fair. So, I mean, look, I get backing a manager, but I mean, it's not a nice place to be at the minute, Tranmere. So, I'm not sure I agree with it.
Yeah, It's a tricky one. Those statements are almost like, "Oh, don't make me do it. I will get rid of you. I know I'm saying I'm not, but I'm but if you don't improve, your time's coming." But it's I don't know. It's one of those where I'm almost not sure if they necessarily have the funds to get rid of him. I don't know. I think it's kind of a case of they're really trying to not have to actually spend anything whilst they're in this sort of precarious position off the pitch as well. It's yeah, I don't necessarily think he necessarily believes his own statement, to be fair, and I definitely don't agree with him staying at this point. I mean, the results speak for themselves. A lot of their crucial fixtures have sort of been and gone, and I mean, with change coming on at Carlisle, if that works, there's only one other team down there, and that's Morecambe, and you never know what they're going to do. They kind of have a habit of surviving every now and then. So I don't know. It's not convincing. I don't think it's something that Tranmere fans would have wanted to hear, particularly either. To be honest, that it's maybe the calm before the storm.
Maybe, but I think I just think they're pretty lucky at the minute that the two teams below them are absolute trash. I think at this current moment in time, it's yet to be seen with Carlisle if Hughes can come in there, and have an impact. If they get a few wins under their belt, and great. I mean, Morecambe, they're a poor side generally speaking, but they have the potential of causing a result. Just look at when they beat Fleetwood the other day. That was a pretty decent result against an albeit inconsistent Fleetwood side. I mean, they did lose to Newport in the week, though. Conceding, minutes after equalising, near the end of the game would be a real sucker punch for them. But at least you can tell where, in Morecambe's case in particular, where they could pick up points from. I mean, Carlisle have pretty much done everything they can now to try and get them out of it. So they've at least tried. I just don't see it with Tranmere. I don't really see where the points are coming from. I don't see who's going to change a game on a sixpence. I don't see who's going to spark that confidence. I mean, they brought in two players on deadline. Look, we'll touch on deadline day in a minute, but they brought in two signings on loan, two players on loan from Manchester United. They brought in three players overall. One's a midfielder. They're clearly so light in attack. And then they've just not addressed that. Free loans. I mean, obviously, Jake Garrett has got championship experience, but they needed more. They needed way more, and they haven't done that. Maybe the lack of funds, maybe there is showing, as you've mentioned, but I don't know. Everything's just up in the air, and I don't really want to dwell on Tranmere too long because we've covered them to death, and and Jack's probably listening to this, and he's probably heard enough, to be honest. But I'm just not sure I agree with that statement there. Even if it's, you've got to try something. Now you can't change the players, but you've got to change something. So the person you look at is the manager. And yeah, like Williamson, I think Atkins should have gone long ago, but he's still in the job. But because it looks like the mates. That's what I get the impression of. And maybe there's a sense that they can't pay enough, but that's just what I get from it. And yeah, I just don't agree with it at all. Deadline day, obviously that was Monday. If you joined in on the transfer deadline day stream, obviously thank you for tuning in. Really enjoyed that. Obviously we had the League One lowdown, guys, for the first hour and a half. You had myself, Jack, and Kieran for the last hour and a half. Couple of transfers I want to mention. I mean, from clubs that have done like different stuff. Bradford, free signings on the day. Bromley Critchlow is one that I've noticed that fan favourite around those parts. MK Dons were pretty busy. I think it's probably safe to mention. I'm sure you'll dip into it a bit more. We'll come to MK in a minute, but obviously I think there's no denying that I think one of the standout signings of the day was Danilo Orsi, very late in deadline day signing on loan. And just a couple of other stuff. I mean, look, Swindon upgraded in the goalkeeper department. I think they needed a goalkeeper that got Connor Ripley. It's interesting that it didn't happen on deadline day, but with Harry McCurdy going to Bromley, that's an interesting one. I've got to admit. And I think, look, Ben Whitfield going back to Barrow, very good for them. I thought, Colchester were busy, just a couple of bits, here and there. Grimsby did absolutely nothing. You'll be interested to know. So it's not like I could talk about a new signing, but no. Well, just from looking at it on the outside, Luke, what did you somewhat take away from the day? Obviously, some teams have strengthened. Some have moved players on, but just like as teams as a whole, what have you sort of made from it after the deadline?
Well, I mean, obviously, I'm talking about my own team a lot at some point. I will, like, we were so busy, so I at some point I will mention my own team. But before I get into that, I think I don't want to overlook that Connor Ripley one. I think that's a really, really good signing. And when you think he was Port Vale's starting choice, and I know he lost his place in the last sort of couple of weeks or so, but it's such a quick change, and he's had that experience. And I mean, for years he's been like a top stopper for sort of League One, League Two level. So I mean, this could this actually be the catalyst for something a little bit bigger for Swindon? Could they go from relegation fodder to the team making a late charge in the playoffs? I think that sort of signing is huge. I really do. I wouldn't put it past them. The form they're in, we know that momentum's a big thing in football, and I mean that's just giving them something else to cling on to. So I'm really looking at that one in particular and thinking, okay, they're the real deal. They're going for it.
Yeah, hopefully they're signing the Connor Ripley that had that absolute masterclass against Bromley earlier in the season, where he pretty much self-handedly earned them a point. Other than the Connor Ripley that rocked up at Blundell Park, had an absolute horror show and gave the ball straight to Svan Thorson in the 90th minute to round him, to put it away, to make it 3-0. Look, he's a very good goalkeeper in his day, but he is prone to the odd moment. But look, I've not been convinced with any of Swindon's goalkeepers. I think, is it Bycroft and is it Barden? Is it the other one they've got? I've not been convinced in either of them.
So.
I think they have, if that, arguably poor. Yeah, I was impressed with that one. I think you look at some of the other stuff as mentioned. Let's just touch on MK Dons because they were busy. Few wells, the likes of Ellis Harrison moving to Walsall. I like that a lot, actually. A couple of others. Tom McGill's gone back to Brighton. You signed a goalkeeper as well. I can't remember his name at the top of my head. Truman, is it?
Truman.
Yeah. I think he signed a left back as well. Again, can't remember the name. But I'll leave you to discuss. No more than me, so I'm not on there.
Yeah, I mean, whenever you looked away with us, there seemed to be something else that happened. I could barely keep up with it. To be fair, I mean, as you mentioned, we signed our wing back or full back. It looks like we might be changing formation at the minute, just due to the sheer amount of defensive injuries we've got. But we brought in a full back, which is competition for Tomlinson, which was much needed. We haven't really had natural competition for him. I mean, we had Brooklyn Lunga. He's obviously gone off to Bromley without really competing all that much. So I think that one was a necessary change and untested. So we don't know how good Patterson will be, but it's an exciting one. And then we sort of started showing a bit more of a ruthless streak because we started releasing players just here and there. Matt Dennis suddenly made way. Tom Carroll also left. I'm surprised no one picked him up straight away, to be honest. Still a very good player. Joe Pritchard left. He's now at Oldham. So we've got rid of a lot of the players that weren't getting in the squad, which definitely needed to happen because our squad was, and to be fair, still is pretty huge. But then it's the incomings as well. Obviously, you mentioned McGill went, which is a slightly confusing one for me. But then Connell Truman came in. Hi AFC fans, he used to play for you. I'm sure you remember. But that's an interesting one. The goalkeeper situation's a bit of a weird one for me because McGillivray was injured in the last week or so in training. I don't know how long he's out for. I would assume, based on the fact that we've got rid of one keeper and brought in another, I would assume it's not too bad, and they'll be competing for the same spot. And Truman won't necessarily just go straight in as number one because he has spent most of his career as a backup keeper in the Championship and various other places. But that's a bit of a wild one. That's I think it's sort of like a watch that space sort of position at the minute. And then you get onto the final business, and that is Ellis Harrison disappearing off to Walsall, which is a shame. I think he he didn't get as much game time as he deserved. I think he'll do very well at Walsall, actually, if they start him, because he's just a brilliant hold-up player. We'll chip him with the odd goal. I really like him as a player. It's a shame it's sort of going to end that way, really, because he's going to have that loan spell, and after that, he's probably released heading into the summer. But the reason we've done that is obviously to get in Danilo Orsi, who's a class above, in my opinion. I was a huge fan of his work, even against us. To be fair, I think all 4 games we played against him last season, I spent a lot of the time talking about him. He was the one player I wanted in the summer. He's such a workhorse forward as well. Pardon the pun with the whole feed your snail score sort of thing. But no, I think this is a huge signing. I think he's absolutely huge for us. He can go straight into the starting lineup, and the fastest way to implement Lindsay's style of play is to get his players that have done it before. I wouldn't want to see us get many more Crawley players after this, to be honest. I think once we hit the summer, we should be done with that. But I think for now, just to implement that style of play fully, get us up and running, I don't mind it. Certainly not someone of Orsi's calibre as well. I think he's brilliant.
I was going to say, you'll be buying Wagby out soon at Crawley with the amount of former players and current players that you're buying. Hell, you've even nicked the manager. Someone clearly after the playoff game just went round the Crawley players and management. Like, okay, have you got your phone number? For no reason whatsoever. I just want it stored.
We've got 6 of the 8 goals scored against us are now in our team, so we'll take that.
Just ridiculous, but look, I like the signing of Orsi. I really wish he got a shot at Grimsby. I agreed with. I mentioned this to you the other day. I agreed with selling him on for Crawley at the time because he only made a handful of appearances in the league, but it was in the FA Cup. I thought he played really well. That's where he played a lot of his games. Because at one point we only had one striker and it was him. But I mean, I look at the one at Luton. Southampton, he won that penalty. Definite pen. I'm not having anyone saying that he wasn't. Go and have a look if you're unsure what it was, but yeah, definite pen. But you can tell he has something about him, but it was clearly a huge mistake on our part because he's clearly gone to Crawley and excelled there, and good luck to him. He's a very good footballer and decent guy by all accounts as well. But I really like that. Yeah, just a couple of other stuff as well. Anthony Scully going back to Colchester was another interesting one. I had him on loan at the first half season, then went back to Portsmouth. I think he had a bit of an injury. So I think that's an interesting one. Colchester were pretty busy themselves. It seemed a pretty successful one. Ben Fox going to Harrogate is one I like. If you can keep him fit, he's a very good player. I don't think there's really much more to say. Just out of the 24 teams, if you had to pick one, real quickly before we look at the games, if you had to pick one who has had the best transfer window, I'm saying not MK Dons, you're not allowed to pick your team. Who would you go for? For me personally, I really like what Bradford have done. I think in terms of, look, they were going to miss Andy Cook, but I think probably the way that they've been doing things at the minute has probably helped. But they've just assured in different areas. Look, Lapsley, Tommy Lee, there could be good Bradford plays in a Graham Alexander system. The left back at the sign on loan from Palace, Critchlow coming back, obviously fan favourite over there. Michael Mellon not getting a look in, but he's a very good striker for League Two. I just like what they've done. I've just been a big fan of them personally, so they'd probably be my pick.
You took the words out of my mouth right there. To be fair, Bradford would have been the team I'd say, but I will go with someone else, and it'll be more for keeping players than getting rid of them. I'm going to say Bromley because they've got players like Michael Cheek, Danny Imray. If they lost those two, they could have been in free fall. I know their form's not great at the minute, but with those two in the team, you always feel like okay, they've got enough there. That's enough to at least keep them safe. They're well away from any sort of relegation battle or anything like that, which was probably the primary aim going into the season. They've got Congreve in, who's immediately gone and got a couple of goals against Salford. Obviously, I'm biased. I like the look of Alunga, even though he's not had much of a chance. It's a case of they didn't necessarily need to do loads, but what little they've done and the players they've held on to combined with that, I think it works quite well, and I think it stands them in good stead for the rest of the season.
Absolutely. Just a quick mention on Town as well. While I'm at it, I quite liked our business. Only 2 signings in, and we've only sent Raquel Pike on loan. 2 permanent additions, clearly 2 that we've clearly had we've scouted them for a long time, especially in Gazzadara Turi's case. Will probably take a while to settle in, but the fact that we brought players in which we hope that we can develop and really make an impact on the squad with Burns as well. Yet to make his debut, but I'm looking forward to seeing him play, as well as pretty much keeping our big assets, because I think there's quite a few players in which I think I said previously we might have a hard time keeping in the summer. There's a few good players there to keep them, from now to the end of the season. I think we've done really well there. So just overall, I'm pretty pleased with what we've done, albeit it was very minimum. Let's run through the games this week. We'll rattle through these very quickly. We'll make sure there's a game tonight, actually. Of course, it's Thursday, and not sure when this will go up, so this might be redundant by the time this goes up. But Chesterfield coming up against Doncaster tonight. I really like the look of this game. Doncaster will go 4 points behind Walsall with a victory. Chesterfield will overtake us in 9th if they were to pick up 3 points. There's 2 decent teams there. I mean, Doncaster have been on a bit of a run at the minute. I think Chesterfield could probably do with a win, just the 1 win in their last 7 in the league. I mean, Chesterfield won 3-0 in the last fixture, a couple of red cards for Doncaster. I really like the look at this one.
Yeah, I think it'll be an interesting game. I mean, Chesterfield have had a bit of a defensive rebuild over January, and I think they've lost McFadden already to injury, which is a bit of a shame because he's a very, very good player on his day. But it's one of those fixtures, as you say, Chesterfield haven't necessarily had the results recently. I think Doncaster have that extra little bit of quality both at the back and going forwards. I would expect Doncaster to get this done, especially away. I feel I don't have the stats for this, but I have a feeling they're better away than they are at home, or at least that's how it feels like to me anyway. So I would expect Doncaster to win it, probably just about. But I think it should be an exciting game, actually. I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah, it'll probably be on at the side because, I mean, a dart start tonight. And that will take most of my interest, but I'll be keeping an eye on that one. I think it'll be another Doncaster win, if I'm going to be honest. I think they're standing themselves in good stead at the minute. And they've got Crystal Palace coming up in the FA Cup on, I think, Monday as well. So it'll be a good sort of warm-up for that one when they host the Premier League side. Bradford City against Harrogate, a little bit of a Yorkshire derby in this one. Bradford don't have the best of records against Harrogate. I don't think many teams around that area do. We definitely don't. Although we have beaten them for the first time in what seems, in our lifetime, really. I think we beat them like years ago when it was a non-league side, like the FA Trophy or whatever. Look, Bradford are at home. I mean, look, Harrogate are they can get a result like this. I mean, there is instances where they can do well, but look, it's hard to not fancy Bradford at home at the minute for me.
Oh, yeah, no, 100% agree. I don't think Harrogate have been as strong recently either. So I think this is going to be a routine win for Bradford for me. I think the way they're going, they've got that momentum with them. I know they lost that game the other week, but I think again, if you're just looking at quality of the side, you would expect Bradford to sort of pull through. Really.
Yeah, completely agree. I don't think it'll be all plain sailing. I think what Harrogate somewhat like to set up away from home in particular. But I do expect Bradford to get the job done and another 3 points there. Swindon hosting Port Vale is an interesting one. Of course, our plaudits have been towards Swindon as of late. 4 straight victories in League Two, coming up against Port Vale, who have somewhat found their mojo again. They're unbeaten in 5, winning 3 of them. This is a difficult one to call because I mean, Swindon are full of confidence at the minute, absolutely full of it. They're at home as well. Port Vale, they are capable of a bit of a stinking result, although their last league defeat came at Blundell Park, in which they were absolutely terrible on the day. But yeah, it could go either way. This one, if I have to pick one, I'm leaning towards Port Vale just for an away victory, but I won't be surprised if Swindon get a result.
Well, yeah, I mean, just looking at at the sides both teams have beaten. I mean, on Port Vale's are slightly more impressive. They've beaten Doncaster. I don't think a point against Cheltenham is too bad either. And I know they're lower in the table, but I think they're a very good little side. And as you say, it's unbeaten for a little while. Same with Swindon, although the calibre of their opponents has been not as high, but then they've got a lot of goals against them. So I'm going to back Swindon. I'll tell you what, I'm backing Swindon. I think the momentum from the last couple of games. I mean, what is it? I think it's eight scored in the last 2 games, and I think that'll be enough to get them through this one and pull off. Well, a little bit of a shock result. It's probably not a huge shock at this stage, but that's probably one of the games of the game week, I'd say.
Yeah, look, look, I won't be surprised. Like I said, I won't be surprised if it goes either way. But just something about Port Vale, which I think just might do it for me. But it could even be a draw. I'm not saying that teams could either win or lose. I know we're doing it like that, but yeah, it's just a colourless one, I think, for me at the minute. But I'm leaning just towards Port Vale. Accrington Stanley against AFC Wimbledon. I mean, we know that Accrington, they're struggling near the bottom a little bit. They've won one of their last 4. The last game coming against Port Vale, losing 2-1, with Port Vale finishing with 10 men as well, which is, albeit Port Vale are a pretty decent side. It's probably not the best of looks, probably, but the fact that they've had 10 men. AFC Wimbledon, look, they're going very well at the minute. They are 7 unbeaten with 4 wins in the last encounter. I remember the last game, it finished 2-2. Accrington were 2-0 up and they blew it again. Both goals coming very late on for AFC Wimbledon to salvage a draw. I'm going to go for Wimbledon winner. I think they'll win this.
Accrington win 4-0. No, it's I think realistically AFC are probably gonna win this one. I mean, I was really annoyed with that Accrington performance the other week. I mean, how can you go up against 10 men, get yourselves into a position to equalise and then go and concede again? Like, I mean, at times in that game, it looked like Port Vale were the ones playing with the extra man. It was ridiculous. And again, I just don't think they have enough about them to do anything against an AFC side that is physical. They are aggressive, and I'd expect them to get the job done now.
Yeah, of course, an AFC Wimbledon side who are only they're touching distance away from the top 3. So that'll be a big 3 points if they go to the struggling side and beat them there. Barrow against Gillingham. Obviously, it's not quite the Stephen Clements derby anymore after both clubs have sacked him within the past year. So there's maybe that element to it. But obviously, Barrow under the management of Peter Wing, they've lost their last couple of games, losing to Newport last time out, in which it looked like they had the much better of it for a lot of the game, but done by an own goal. Gillingham have been, absolutely horrific as of late. They are without a win in their last day. They had 3 points snatched of them right at the end at Blundell Park the other week when Danny Rose bagged in the 97th minute. I don't know how we were absolutely appalling. That second half is arguably the worst I've ever seen, but Gillingham, I'm not going to make out that Gillingham were any good because I really didn't think they were. And any other side beats us 4-5-1, I think, that night. That was really poor from us and really poor from them. I'm going to back Barrow. I think the fact that they're at home and the fact that they didn't seem far off against Newport, just done by an own goal, but I just back him to get the job done at home, to be quite honest. I mean, this is a Gillingham side massively out of form, out of confidence. John Coleman's still waiting his first win. I don't know. I just back Barrow. I think the fact that they're at home, I think, is swaying me towards them.
Yeah, I mean, this is very much the battle of who's less bad. I'm not been impressed by either of the teams for a long time, really. To be fair, I'm struggling to see where the quality is going to come from in that game at all. If anything, I think we could well be looking at a 0-0 board draw where absolutely nothing happens over the course of 90 minutes. It really would not shock me at this point. I think that's a safe bet, so that's what I'm going to go with.
Yeah, I don't see tons of quality in that one. I don't expect loads of goals, but I just fancy Barrow at home just a little bit more. Colchester against Walsall up next. Walsall have, sort of hit a little bit of a brick wall in recent weeks without a win in their last 3. They came back from 2-0 down to draw with Salford 2-2. They had lost to Fleetwood and Bradford before then, losing 3-0 at Bradford, to be fair. Colchester, they're unbeaten in 4. They've won 3 of the last 4. It's a difficult game for Walsall. We know how defensively sound I think Colchester have been. They've clearly got some threats. I'm going to say a draw. I think. I honestly think Colchester might get something out of it, and I think for the first time, for pretty much all season, dare I say, it might be an all right time to play Walsall at the minute.
Well, yeah, it might be. To be fair, as you said, the results haven't been great. I mean, they showed a very good fight back at the very least. Although they went 2 down to Salford, they did fight back and they do always have that sort of 90-minute threat. They're always going to do something at some point. But like I said, I mean, Colchester for me, I know I keep saying it all season. They're the team, one of those teams I'm expecting to creep up at some point, and this is the catalyst fixture. I'm calling it. They're going to win. Colchester are winning this game, and that's definitely going to come back to bite me. But I'm going with it.
But there's also another one in which I wouldn't be surprised about. I just think, I don't know, maybe the fact that Colchester like draws, and I think if they'd offered a draw against Walsall, top of the league at the minute, I think they probably would take it.
Yeah, definitely.
Even at home as well. So, yeah, again, I won't be surprised if Colchester win at the minute, and definitely not Walsall. But I'm on the fence. I'm going to say a draw for this one, personally. We've got Crewe against Newport in this one. Crewe have only lost one of their last 8. There's 4 draws in there. They've drawn quite a few games. They've drawn the last 2. 1-1 to Harrogate was their most recent result. As for Newport, a couple of wins in a row. They sort of moved them away from that dreaded drop zone a little bit. They picked up 7 points from their last 9. So, that maybe things may be looking up. They've got some good firepower. They've got some fast players, that can hurt teams. Coming up against a very defensively sound Crewe side. I think Crewe will get back to winning ways in this one for me.
Yeah, I think I'm agreed on that one. I mean, yes, Newport have had a couple of decent results, but it's Barrow who are terribly out of form, and it's Morecambe who are respectfully just a little bit bad. The point against Salford's, again, it's all right, but again, another team that's sort of out of form. For me, this is screaming routine win for Crewe, and they're just very good at not losing anyway. Crewe, they'll get at least a point, like 100%. They're very good at making sure they come away with at least something, and that's one of the reasons they're up there. But for me, all 3 on this occasion.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. Fleetwood against Cheltenham Town. I mean, look, Fleetwood been very inconsistent as of late. 3 wins, 3 defeats in their last 6, losing 4-2 away at Morecambe last time. That was an interesting result. That was a cracking win for Morecambe, mind. Whereas you look at Cheltenham, they're doing okay. They're a tad bit inconsistent themselves, but they're picking up a few draws along the way. 7 points from their last 9. Picked up a good late win against Chesterfield last time out. I think this is another tough one to call. I think it's probably another game that could go either way, but I think I'm slightly leaning towards Fleetwood on this occasion. But again, will not be surprised if Cheltenham go there and pick up a result, because they're very capable of doing.
Well, this is it's almost an impossible fixture to predict, this one. I mean, you don't, especially with Fleetwood, you don't know which Fleetwood are showing up. Is it the ones that can go and beat Walsall, or is it the ones that go and get battered by Morecambe? It doesn't quite add up. It's so tricky to work with. I do rate Cheltenham. I think they're a decent little side. I think based on home advantage, I think I'd have to agree, though. I think we'll see the right Fleetwood on this one.
Mm-hmm. Talking of teams in which you don't know what sort of team that will rock up, it's my team, Grimsby Town. Of course, as mentioned earlier, we welcome Mark Hughes' Carlisle to Blundell Park at the weekend, and it's the fact that they've got a new manager that sort of scares me, because it was only a couple of weeks ago, Andy Wing's first game in charge of Barrow was against us, and they beat us 3-0, and we had 75% possession, in which we did absolutely nothing with it. look, we beat Carlisle 3-2 earlier in the season. It took a last-minute winner to do that. This is a difficult one to call. We've not been bad at home recently. I think we haven't lost in our last 4 home games. I can't not say us. I've got to go with I've got to go with a Grimsby win here. I think it's certainly a chance. After that good win at Bromley last time out, there's a very good opportunity for back-to-back wins here. I like to think we have a little bit too much for them.
Yeah, it's a tricky one because I think if I'm looking at this without the whole new manager thing, I'm thinking, okay, yeah, routine win Grimsby, that'll be the end of it. But this new manager thing, and
Changes everything.
We saw it with Barrow as well, didn't we? Like I said, they had that one result and then they went back to losing. So I wouldn't be surprised if they do come away with a result. And I'm sorry, I think I'm going to have to back Carlisle on this one, just purely for the new manager bounce. I don't know whether they'll keep getting results long term, but it wouldn't surprise me if that just gave them a little bit to work with, a little bit of momentum.
That's the thing. That's what scares me. But it's not a thing. It's the fact. I don't know. Look, I might make myself silly, but I can't say it's to lose. I just can't. But again, I won't be surprised. I mean, we could really do with winning that because we go to Doncaster next week, and that'll be difficult. MK Dons coming up against Bromley. Of course, Bromley, the side that we beat last time out. They have played again since. They absolutely threw away a 3-goal lead away at Salford City. Jake, I want that tenner, please. Cheers. I'm still waiting for that, for what you said in the chat. You offered right at 3-1, right? Okay, tenner for everyone in this chat if it's 3-3. And let me behold, that's happened. I'll send you my bank details whenever. Yeah, coming to Stadium, MK. I think both sides could do with a win. To be honest, just a 1 win in 6 for MK. Bromley have gone off it a little bit since playing Newcastle. There are without a league win in 6, 4 defeats in that time. I don't know. I'll leave you first to discuss this because it's your team.
I mean, I know Bromley got a point in midweek, but for me, that feels like a loss, doesn't it? I mean, you've thrown away a 3-goal lead, and as you say, I mean, before that it was 4 losses in 5, which is the same for our 2 opponents after that as well. I think for us, we're probably looking at these next sort of 2 or 3 fixtures, and we're thinking, right, it's go time now. And we've also had this big sort of thing going on with the transfer window. We've got our shiny new signings and all the rest of it. I'd like to think this is where we start to pick things up. I'm backing us for a win.
And I think thinking about it even more, I'm sort of taking, what Bromley did in the week into perspective as well. Yeah, I think an MK win just. I don't think you'll have it all your own way, though. Because you know what Bromley set up can try to be. You know what type of team they are.
It'll be quite similar to the Doncaster game in that sense, because they'll sit back, but they get men forward very, very quickly, and they're very good at using their numbers. So it will be tight, but I'd hope we come away with it.
You've got their threats, like Cheat. He's pretty quick for a big lad, to be fair, and obviously the likes of Danny and Ray, who I'm surprised hasn't moved on. To be honest, I'm surprised that he hasn't gone any higher. But it's Bromley's game, but he looked very good in the week. But other than that, MK just for me. 2 more games to get through. We'll get through these very quickly because I've got to be out the door very shortly. Notts County coming up against Morecambe. I mean, I think the defeat for Morecambe in the week at Newport might have put a little bit of a downer on, after a good result against Fleetwood, in which they've won 4-2 there. Notts County coming into this very well. Just the 1 defeat in their last 10 is what I'm counting here. Oh no, 9, I think. Bad maths. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. No, 10. They've lost once in the last 10, and that was to Walsall. Pretty straightforward, this one. I think it'll be a Notts County victory, with them being at Meadowlane as well. Yeah,
routine not to win for me. I think anything other than that would be a huge shock, to be honest. Yeah, I think it's hard to predict anything else. Morecambe just don't have enough quality. Notts have a ridiculous amount of quality. 9 times out of 10, that's a Notts win.
Yeah, and I think most people will probably go along with that. Salford against Tranmere, finally. I mean, you've got the battle of Jake against Jack in this one. I mean, after this game, Jake will only have 1 more game in the host league table, and that's against us in mid-March. So he's got a little bit of a nervous way after that. But look, Salford could do with a win. I think, have not won in the last 5. 3 straight draws. Notice that they drew 1-1, then they drew 2-2, then they drew 3-3. I'll be honest, I can't see them drawing 4-4 with Tranmere because they can't hit a barn door with a banjo. So look, we've discussed Tranmere to death. They're a very poor side, lacking in confidence and lacking in quality. I think Salford will get back to winning ways. I think this is a good opportunity for them.
Well, yeah, I think when you combine it with the midweek result, although it's a draw for them, it's going to feel like a win, isn't it? I mean, they've come back from 3-0 down, scored 3 goals. That's a reasonable amount of momentum to bring into it. Tranmere are just still in free fall, so for me, this probably is a Salford win. As much as we hoped on the last pod that it wouldn't be, and I think that would make for a hilarious discussion if we can get both Jack and Jake on the Sunday or whenever we record. But I think it probably is a Salford win.
Yeah. I think they've got a lot of injuries as well, but I'm just going off how poor Tranmere are at the minute. I just can't see anything but that. But I think we'll leave it there. Let us know if you've enjoyed this sort of format. We'll probably do this somewhat away a little bit more. It'll probably be a little bit more focused on different games because there's a little bit of news to go with. We might even try some score predictions in this as well. But let us know what you think to that. We'll wrap it up there. Thank you guys for listening. I hope you've enjoyed this midweek somewhat episode. If you have enjoyed, make sure to hit that like button. Subscribe if you're new on YouTube. Again, thanks for 500 subs. We really do appreciate your support. And going forward, make sure you go and follow our social pages and all the good stuff that comes with it. We'll be back at the weekend. It will probably drop into your airwaves on Monday, where we have a look at these games and we'll have a look what's happened there. So thank you guys for listening. We'll see you then. Take care.